They walked me to Monica Wells's corner office like I was reporting for a system shutdown. She didn't stand when I entered, just sat behind that glass desk, gesturing to the chair with the kind of dismissive wave you'd give a spam notification. "Danny," she said, "no handshake, no pleasantries. We need to discuss your transition timeline. I'm Danny Rodriguez, 47 years old, and I'd given TechFlow Systems 22 years of my life. Started there right after my discharge from Army Signal Corps in 2001, back when the company was running operations out of a converted warehouse in Aurora, chasing government contracts that seemed impossible to win. I was 25 then, fresh out of service with clearances and network engineering skills that defense contractors desperately needed. Monica had been CEO for 18 months. Harvard MBA, 34 years old, brought in by the board for digital transformation after our founder retired. She had that Silicon Valley energy, always talking about disruption and agile workforces and leveraging synergies. She flipped open a tablet with my personnel file displayed. "Your performance reviews have been solid," she said, like she was discussing server maintenance logs. "But we're pivoting toward a more cloud-native workforce. The cybersecurity landscape requires fresh thinking. Fresh thinking. The network security protocols generating 60% of their defense contracts were mine. I designed the core architecture in 2012, during a weekend when our system got penetrated by what we suspected were Chinese state actors. I'd locked myself in the server room for 72 hours straight, surviving on coffee and determination until I cracked a solution that would become the foundation of modern defense network security. My fingers found Diana's wedding ring hanging on the chain around my neck. 3 years since cancer took her. 3 years since I'd turned down that 2M offer from Lockheed because she needed me home for treatments. I could still hear her voice from that last chemotherapy session. "Danny, you're missing your life for that place. Don't let them take more than they're worth." But I had let them take more. Every weekend I'd spent debugging systems while Diana lay exhausted from treatments. Every family dinner I'd missed for system alerts that could have waited until Monday. Every moment I'd prioritized network uptime over real time with the woman who actually mattered. Monica kept talking about organizational realignment and workforce optimization. Corporate speak for getting rid of expensive old guys who actually understood how the systems worked, who knew that cybersecurity wasn't just about trendy algorithms, but about understanding how adversaries think. The kind of deep knowledge that only comes from years of experience, from learning how systems fail under pressure. "The early retirement package is generous," she concluded, sliding a folder across the glass. "One 18-month salary, full benefits continuation, and a strong recommendation letter." I didn't touch the folder. Behind her, the Denver skyline stretched under a gray Colorado morning, mountains barely visible through the smog. A view paid for by technology I'd built with my own hands. Technology that protected military communications from Afghanistan to Germany, systems that kept soldiers alive in hostile territory. "You'll need to transfer all system access by end of business Friday," she said. "HR will handle the transition documentation." I stood up, straightened my jacket, and looked her in the eyes. The same eyes that had dismissed 22 years of service like deleting a corrupted file. "You might want to hold off on that transition paperwork." Then I walked out, no drama, no raised voices. Past the assistants staring at their monitors, probably calculating their own job security. Past the young engineers who saw me as legacy hardware, ready for decommissioning. Past the lobby with its motivational posters about innovation and disruption. Words that meant nothing when applied to human beings. Outside, the October air had bite to it. Denver traffic hummed along Colfax like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The moment Monica dismissed me as obsolete, she'd made a fatal error in judgment. Like assuming a quiet process isn't critical just because you don't understand what it does. Instead of driving straight home to my ranch house in Littleton, I went to Sullivan's Bar, the kind of place where defense contractor guys grabbed lunch and talked shop over beer and burgers. I needed to think, and I needed to make a phone call. I ordered a Budweiser and called Steve Coleman. Steve had been my signal officer back in our Germany deployment, 2nd Armored Division. Sharp guy who understood both technology and people in equal measure. Now he was a patent attorney specializing in defense technology. One of the few lawyers I actually trusted. "Steve," I said when he picked up, "just got the early retirement speech. Need to verify some intellectual property details." "About what specifically?" "The network security protocols from 2012. The ones TechFlow has been licensing to half the defense industry." Long pause. I could hear papers shuffling in the background, the sound of a mind shifting into professional mode. Danny, where are you right now? Sullivan's having a beer and wondering if I've been as naive as I feel. Can you meet me at my office? This sounds like something we need to discuss in person. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The drive downtown gave me time to think about what I actually knew versus what I'd assumed. In the Army, we had a saying, "Assumptions are the mother of all failures." I'd assumed TechFlow owned the patent on technology I'd developed. I'd assumed my 22 years of loyalty meant something. I'd assumed they saw me as valuable rather than expendable. Maybe it was time to stop making assumptions and start verifying facts. Steve's office was downtown, nothing fancy, but professional. Certificates and commendations on the walls, the kind of credentials that meant something because they were earned, not bought. He had our old unit photo from Germany on his desk. Young soldiers who thought they could change the world through superior technology. "Show me the original patent filing," I said as soon as I sat down. He pulled it up on his computer, then started frowning. The kind of frown you get when you're looking at corrupted data that doesn't make sense, when the system is telling you something impossible. "Danny, this is very interesting. The original application lists your home address in Littleton, not TechFlow's corporate address. What does that mean exactly?" "It means you filed this as an independent inventor, not as a company employee." He scrolled through the documents, clicking through screen after screen of technical specifications and legal language. And there's a notation here that says, "Assignment pending legal review." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Legal review that never happened. Apparently not. Steve leaned back in his chair, studying the screen like he was analyzing enemy communications. "Do you understand what this could mean? If there's no valid assignment agreement, I was still the legal owner of patent 9,247,891. The network security technology that TechFlow had been licensing to every major defense contractor for the past 11 years. Technology that generated approximately $85 million in total revenue across the defense industrial base. Money that had flowed through dozens of companies, hundreds of government contracts, systems that protected everything from drone communications to satellite networks. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Steve smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. It was the smile he used to get right before we'd intercept enemy communications back in Germany, when we knew we had them dead to rights. "First, we verify ownership with the patent office. Then, we have a very interesting conversation with TechFlow about operating licenses they don't actually have." I left Steve's office feeling like I'd just discovered a backdoor in the system that nobody else knew existed. The elevator ride down seemed to take forever. In the polished steel doors, I saw a 47-year-old guy wearing a polo shirt and carrying a leather briefcase. But I wasn't some disposable employee anymore. I was potentially the legal owner of technology worth tens of millions of dollars, and Monica Wells had just made the biggest tactical error of her professional life. The drive home through familiar Denver suburbs gave me time to process what I'd learned, past strip malls and chain restaurants, through neighborhoods where normal people lived normal lives without worrying about patent disputes or corporate warfare. But nothing felt normal anymore. Everything had shifted, like when you finally understand how a complex system actually works versus how you thought it worked. My house was a modest ranch in Littleton, nothing fancy but comfortable. The mortgage was manageable, and I'd been smart with investments over the years, thanks to military discipline about saving money. Diana used to joke that I approached our finances like a network security audit, paranoid and thorough. Scout greeted me at the door with his usual enthusiasm. My German Shepherd was getting gray around the muzzle, named after our unit's call sign from Germany. He had that alertness you want in a good soldier. Always watching, always ready. These days he seemed to watch me more carefully, like he could sense something was different. I fed him, grabbed a Budweiser from the fridge, and sat on my deck overlooking the small backyard where I kept my workbench for weekend projects. The kind of projects Diana used to tease me about, fixing things that weren't broken, optimizing systems that already worked fine. Always trying to make everything more efficient, more secure, more reliable. My phone buzzed. A text from Carl Mitchell, one of the senior engineers I'd mentored over the years. A good kid who reminded me of myself at that age, hungry to learn, willing to work weekends to solve impossible problems. Heard about the retirement thing. "That's rough, man. Let me know if you need anything." I appreciated the sentiment but didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? Thanks, but I might be about to destroy the company we both worked for. Thanks, but your mentor just discovered he might own the technology that keeps this place running. The thing about working in the same place for 22 years is that people start seeing you as part of the infrastructure, like the servers humming in the basement or the security badges hanging from lanyards, reliable, always there, requiring minimal maintenance until someone like Monica decides you're not worth the electricity to keep running. I thought about all the young engineers I'd trained, the classified projects I'd salvaged when they went sideways, the weekends I'd spent debugging systems while other people were at home with their families. Diana used to say I had two wives, her and TechFlow. She was wrong. TechFlow was the mistress I couldn't quit, and she was the wife who deserved better. Around 10 p.m., my daughter Lisa called from her apartment downtown. She was 27, a corporate lawyer, smart as hell and twice as stubborn. Got that from her mother, along with the ability to see through corporate nonsense. Dad, I heard what happened today. I'm so sorry. It's fine, sweetheart. I'll figure something out. You shouldn't have to figure anything out. You gave them everything. Even when Mom was sick, you were still working weekends, still taking calls during her treatments. That hit harder than I expected. Diana used to say the same thing during those long months when cancer was eating her alive, and I was still prioritizing system alerts over sitting by her bedside. Still convinced that I was indispensable, that TechFlow couldn't function without me monitoring every network anomaly. Lisa, I said, trying to change the subject. How's work? How's Marcus? Dad, don't do that. Don't deflect. Mom used to get so frustrated when you'd change the subject whenever she tried to talk about work-life balance. She was right to be frustrated. Then why didn't you listen? Because I thought I was building something that mattered. Because I thought loyalty meant something. Because I was an idiot who confused being busy with being important. We talked for another 20 minutes about her caseload, her boyfriend, her plans for the weekend. Normal things that felt surreal given what I'd discovered today. After we hung up, I sat there holding Diana's ring, thinking about all the bandwidth I'd wasted on TechFlow while she was fighting for her life. My phone lit up with an email around midnight. From Steve, timestamped 11:47 p.m., subject line, preliminary findings, this is bigger than we thought. Danny spent the evening digging through USPTO records and TechFlow corporate filings. No assignment agreement anywhere in the system. Patent 9,247,891 lists you as sole inventor and owner, filed from your home address in 2012. But here's the kicker. I found licensing agreements with 31 different entities. DoD contracts, NATO allies, private defense contractors. This technology is embedded in critical military communication systems worldwide. Your protocol is protecting deployed units in 3 different theaters right now. Meet me first thing tomorrow. We need to talk strategy. Also found something interesting in TechFlow's original corporate bylaws that you need to see. Steve, I read it 3 times, each pass making the implications clearer. Then I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling for a long time, listening to Scout's breathing from his bed in the corner, thinking about soldiers in hostile territory depending on communications secured by technology I'd built during those marathon weekends in the server room. Monica Wells had forced me into early retirement today, had looked across her glass desk with her startup arrogance and dismissed 22 years of service like I was corrupted data to be deleted. She had no idea that the technology powering her entire company's success wasn't actually theirs to use. And tomorrow, I was going to start showing her exactly how expensive that mistake was going to be. Morning came with that particular Colorado clarity that makes you appreciate being alive. I made coffee strong enough to wake the dead, fed Scout, and put on my best suit. If today was going to be the beginning of something big, I wanted to look professional when the system crashed around Monica Wells. Steve's assistant showed me to the conference room at 8 a.m. sharp. He had documents spread across the table like a mission briefing, charts, printouts, legal briefs, patent filings, all arranged with the kind of military precision that told me he'd been up most of the night preparing for war. Sit down, Danny. This is bigger than either of us imagined. He pushed a document across the table. This is your original patent application from 2012. The network security architecture that TechFlow built their entire government contracts division around. I scanned the pages, seeing my own handwriting in the margins, notes and calculations from those long nights solving problems that seemed impossible at the time. Technical specifications that had become the foundation of modern defense communications. Seeing it now felt surreal, like looking at system logs from a previous installation where everything had worked perfectly. Here's what I found, Steve continued, pulling out a thick folder. TechFlow has been operating under the assumption they own this patent for 11 years. They've executed licensing agreements with 31 different defense contractors and government agencies. He spread out a chart showing the web of contracts like a network topology diagram. Your technology is currently protecting communications for deployed units in Afghanistan, NATO Cyber Command in Brussels, and about 20 other classified operations I can't discuss in an unsecured location. How is that even possible? I asked. Didn't anyone check the paperwork? Steve shrugged. You know how it was in 2012. Everything was moving fast after the defense budget cuts. Lots of startup chaos. They probably meant to have you sign an assignment agreement, and it got lost in the shuffle. Years passed, everyone assumed it was handled, and nobody ever followed up. He pulled out another document. But here's what's really interesting. I found this in TechFlow's original corporate bylaws from 2001. He pointed to a specific clause highlighted in yellow. It says that any intellectual property developed by employees becomes company property only after proper assignment documentation is executed and filed with both the patent office and the corporate secretary. And that never happened, correct? Which means this patent legally belongs to you, not just legally, exclusively and unambiguously yours. The implications hit me like a system crash you never saw coming. TechFlow had been licensing my technology for over a decade without actually owning it. Every government contract, every licensing deal, every dollar of revenue generated from my protocol, technically unauthorized use. What are my options? I asked. Steve counted them off like running through a diagnostic checklist. Option 1, let it slide. Take your retirement package and move on with your life. Not happening. Didn't think so. Option 2, demand retroactive royalties for all the licensing deals they've made over 11 years. Industry standard for defense network security patents is 4 to 6% of gross revenue. I did the quick math. If TechFlow had generated $85 million from my technology over 11 years, even at 4%, that was substantial money, life-changing money. And option 3, Steve's smile could have cut through encrypted data, revoke their license entirely, force them to negotiate new terms if they want to continue using your technology, which would put Monica in an impossible position. But Danny, he continued, his expression turning serious, you need to understand what you're getting into. TechFlow has resources, expensive lawyers from white shoe firms. They'll fight back with everything they have. Can they win? Probably not. Patent law is pretty clear about ownership, and we have documentation going back to the original filing, but they can make it expensive and drag it out for months. Plus, he hesitated. There's something else. This has national security implications. If you revoke the license, it's not just TechFlow that gets hurt. It's every military operation currently using systems built on your technology. That stopped me cold. I thought about soldiers in the field depending on communications secured by technology I'd built. Guys like I used to be, trying to do their jobs in hostile territory, trusting their lives to systems that had to work perfectly every time. So what are you saying? I'm saying we need to be strategic. If we're going to use this leverage, we need to think about how to do it without compromising operations that keep people alive. I thought about Monica Wells sitting in her corner office, confident in her digital transformation strategy. About Diana encouraging my work, even when treatments left her so exhausted she could barely keep her eyes open. About Lisa telling me I'd given TechFlow everything while my wife was dying. Let's do it, all of it, retroactive royalties and license revocation. But we do it right. Steve nodded slowly. This is going to get expensive and ugly. Good. They should have thought about that before treating me like obsolete equipment. The next few weeks became a blur of legal preparation and escalating corporate panic. Steve confirmed ownership with the Patent Office, prepared cease and desist letters, and reached out to his contacts in the Pentagon to give them advance warning about potential disruptions to defense systems. Meanwhile, I started getting calls. First from TechFlow's legal department, trying to schedule meetings about my retirement documentation. The tone was friendly, professional, just routine paperwork to complete my transition. Then from Monica herself, suddenly very interested in ensuring a smooth handover. The retirement package offers kept getting sweeter, 24-month salary instead of 18, extended benefits, consulting opportunities that would keep me connected to the company. They were panicking, scrambling to get me to sign comprehensive release agreements before I figured out what I actually owned. Each new offer included more extensive non-compete clauses, intellectual property assignment confirmations, and liability waivers that would have impressed Pentagon lawyers. I didn't sign anything. The cease and desist letter hit Monica's desk on a Thursday afternoon in November. Steve had it hand-delivered with signature confirmation required. I imagined her opening that envelope, reading the legal language, the confusion giving way to disbelief, then the slowly dawning realization that her entire business model might be built on technology she didn't own. My phone started ringing within an hour. "Danny, this is Monica. We need to talk immediately. There seems to be some confusion about intellectual property matters." I let it go to voicemail, then played it back twice, listening to the strain in her voice, the careful corporate language trying to mask what was probably full-scale panic in the executive suite. The second call came from Bill Harrison, TechFlow's founder who'd retired to Montana but still sat on the board. Bill, I picked up for. He'd been decent to me over the years, more interested in the technology than the politics. "Danny, what the hell is going on? Monica's having some kind of crisis over patent disputes. Bill, you remember when I developed the network security protocols in 2012? Of course. Saved our asses with the Pentagon contracts, best work we ever produced. Did anyone ever have me sign assignment papers for that patent?" Long pause. I could hear wind in the background, probably calling from his ranch. "I don't know, Danny. That would have been handled by legal back then." "Well, they didn't handle it. And now your company has been licensing my technology for 11 years without actually owning it." Another pause, longer this time. "Jesus, Danny, how bad is this? 85 million in licensing revenue bad, over 31 different contracts bad. Critical military systems bad." I could hear him breathing, processing the implications. "What do you want? What's mine?" And recognition that experienced people aren't disposable assets to be discarded when they become inconvenient. The legal warfare escalated quickly after that. TechFlow's team of expensive lawyers tried everything challenging the patent validity, arguing implied assignment, claiming work-for-hire status. Steve countered each move with military precision, like he was still intercepting enemy communications in Germany. But the stress was killing me, literally. I started having headaches that felt like system overloads, couldn't sleep more than 3 hours without waking up to check locks, found myself running diagnostic checks on my own house security system at 2 a.m. Scout started following me around like he was worried I might crash completely. The worst part was the isolation. Word had leaked about the patent dispute, and suddenly I was radioactive in the defense contractor community. Some of my old colleagues avoided me at the grocery store. Others called me a traitor for potentially disrupting military operations. The brotherhood I'd counted on for 22 years split right down the middle. Lisa called one evening in December, her voice tight with concern that reminded me of Diana during the worst of her treatments. "Dad, you look terrible. This lawsuit is eating you alive." "I'm fine, sweetheart." "No, you're not, and Mom wouldn't want this. She'd want you to take care of yourself, not destroy your health over corporate revenge." That hurt because it was true. Diana always said the mission wasn't worth destroying yourself over. But this felt different. This was about dignity, about not letting them erase 22 years like corrupted data that never mattered. "Lisa," I said, "this isn't about revenge. It's about showing that experienced people have value, that you can't just delete us when we become inconvenient." "I know, Dad. But what if you win the battle and lose yourself in the process?" The breakthrough came in January when Steve's contact at the patent office found additional documentation that completely vindicated our position. Not only did I own the patent, but TechFlow had been operating without proper assignment since 2012, and their legal department had known about the gap for at least 5 years. The mediation was scheduled for February at a downtown law office, neutral ground with conference rooms designed for exactly this kind of corporate warfare. Monica walked in looking like she'd aged 5 years and 6 months, flanked by 3 lawyers who probably cost more per hour than I used to make in a week. Their opening offer was insulting, $8 million and a consulting contract that would have kept me quiet and complicit. Steve and I stepped outside to confer in the hallway. "They're desperate," he said. "Stock price has been sliding since news of the dispute leaked. Government contracts are on hold pending resolution." We went back in with our counteroffer. $28 million in retroactive royalties based on 11 years of licensing revenue. 6% ongoing royalties from all products using my technology. An advisory position overseeing veteran hiring practices, and a public acknowledgement that my innovations had been the foundation of their success. The room went silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of Denver traffic. We waited 4 hours while they huddled with their team, made phone calls, probably held emergency board meetings via video conference. They came back with $25 million and 5% royalties. Close enough to what I wanted, but more importantly, it included everything else. The advisory position, the public statement, and a commitment to never terminate employees over 45 without board approval. I signed the agreement on a Thursday morning in March, with Lisa beside me as witness. She'd taken time off from her corporate job to be there, said it was important for someone from our family to see justice done properly. The wire transfer hit my account the next day. More money than I'd ever imagined having, but that wasn't really the point. The point was that Monica Wells and TechFlow learned you can't just delete people like obsolete code. Monica resigned 2 weeks later, citing personal reasons and a desire to pursue new opportunities in startup consulting. Bill Harrison sent me a personal note saying the board had learned valuable lessons about treating experience with respect. But the real victory came 6 months later when I did something Diana would have been proud of. I took $5 million from the settlement and established the Rodriguez Innovation Fund legal support for veteran entrepreneurs who develop valuable technology but can't afford to protect their intellectual property. Lisa left her corporate job to help me run the fund, saying she wanted to do something that actually mattered. We set up offices in the same building where Steve had first shown me those patent documents, turning the place where I discovered my leverage into a base for helping other veterans avoid what I'd been through. The first veteran we helped was a Marine named Carlos Santos who developed drone communication protocols while deployed in Afghanistan. His former employer was trying to claim ownership despite having no assignment agreement. Sound familiar? We provided Carlos with Steve's legal expertise and won him a settlement that let him start his own company. The second case was an Air Force cyber specialist whose innovations in satellite encryption were being used without compensation. Then a Navy communications expert whose protocols were protecting ships worldwide. I still live in the same ranch house in Littleton, still drive my 2015 pickup truck, still drink Budweiser and watch Broncos games on Sunday afternoons. Scout's getting older but still greets me at the door every evening, still follows me around when he senses I'm working too hard. Sometimes I sit on my deck at sunset holding Diana's ring, thinking about the network of relationships that really matter, not the corporate connections or professional achievements, but the bonds that persist even when systems crash and companies fail. TechFlow survived the patent dispute, though they're more careful about intellectual property assignments now. They implemented new policies requiring board approval before terminating any employee with more than 15 years of service, and they established a veteran mentorship program that pairs experienced workers with young engineers. The technology I developed still protects military communications around the world. Soldiers in hostile territory depend on systems built from protocols I designed during those marathon weekends in the server room, trying to solve problems that seemed impossible. But the real legacy isn't the technology. It's the Rodriguez Innovation Fund that's helped 47 veterans protect their innovations over the past 2 years. It's the policy changes that prevent other experienced workers from being discarded like obsolete hardware. It's Lisa working alongside me, building something that honors her mother's memory while protecting people who served their country. And it's the knowledge that sometimes when the system tries to delete you, the best response is to show them exactly what they're about to lose. Because the moment you become truly indispensable is often the same moment they try to dispose of you. That's when you discover you had more power than you ever realized. You just had to know where to find it. Sometimes the most dangerous person in any organization isn't the loudest critic or the obvious rebel. It's the quiet veteran who actually knows how everything works, sitting in the corner with 20+ years of institutional knowledge and nothing left to lose. Corporate America loves to talk about digital transformation and fresh thinking, but they forget that behind every system that actually works is someone who bled to build it, and when you throw that person away, you might just discover they took the keys to the kingdom with them.